This week, I bring to you the last power rankings of the 2018-2019 fantasy football season, where we talk about the teams that are rising and the teams that are falling down towards the bottom. Before I start with the power rankings, I want to say that the power rankings are based on the last 3 to 4, maybe 5 weeks, depending on how a team's win streak is going and who they are beating. Sometimes it comes to points, but I like wins because wins are what get you places in any sport or fantasy football. Um, and power rankings are not going to be based on my playoff predictions. My playoff predictions are going to be different than the power rankings. The power rankings are about teams, what they are doing right now. Right now, where are teams placed? Where has their skill set been before? And how have they risen in the league? I cannot base it. The future predictions for the playoffs are going to be based off of matchups, who's playing what team. It's not fair to bring the power rankings and just apply it to the playoffs, or the playoffs and apply it to the past power rankings. So later on this video, when I do playoff predictions, it'll probably be different than the power rankings I'm showing now, just so you all know. Our first place team is Cubby. That's probably why I mentioned what I did before. Cubby is a 10-3 record, is the best team in our league record-wise. I do not think this is the best team, but he has beaten Tyler, he has beaten Ryan Naughton, he put up an awful point total this week, and somehow beat Ross Davis, because Ross only put up 60 points. So, Cubby stays at the top, he remains there, and our next place team is Kevin Davis with another win this week. I also had another high point total, which was otherwise a very low scoring week in the league this week, but I still put up 120 points. This team looks good. I like it in the second place spot behind Cubby, just because Cubby is now on a 5 or 6 game win streak heading into the playoffs. Me and Cubby have locked up that first round bye. Jake Kerr is our third place team with a 7-6 record. Jake Kerr lost to me this week. He had a pretty off week. Tyreek Hill did absolutely nothing. Patrick Mahomes was the only guy on his team who really did something. Besides that, Jake Kerr's team had an off week. Luckily for him, it doesn't really affect the playoff scenario. He would have gotten a bye if he beat me, but I think this team will be fine. I like Jake's team heading into the playoffs. Our next place team is Ryan Naughton. Ryan Naughton also put up a high point total compared to the rest of the league this week. He sits at 8-5. He beat Ryan Smith. Thank goodness he didn't have to sing I'm a Barbie Girl, and nobody in the league will. But Ryan Naughton is our fourth place team heading into the playoffs in the power rankings. Tyler and Miles Cullen also do not change positions. Our top 5 does not change whatsoever this week. Tyler and Miles have an 8-5 record. This team, besides Todd Gurley, does not look great for the playoffs. James Conner may be injured, and the rest of the team just doesn't look that great. 8-5, this is definitely our 5th place team heading into the playoffs. Our next place team, or our next 2 places, sorry, I double tapped the space bar just now. Drew Michael is 7-6. Eckler did okay this week. Drew Michael's team looks okay as well. But Melvin Gordon may return sooner rather than later now, they're saying. It'll be interesting watching Drew's team going forward. But he is going to be our 6th place team in the power rankings heading into the playoffs. And Josh Kerr sits 6-7. He is rising in the power rankings, the first change I have to the power rankings this week. And Josh Kerr is rising because he got a win this week. He got a high point total, the highest in the league. Josh Kerr's team looks good heading into the Sacco Bowl. Sadly, I think Josh's team is the one team that I wish was in the playoffs with the top 6 players that are above him. Josh's team, I think, is good. I think he'll sweep the Sacco Bowl. And yeah, it sucks. I'm sorry, Josh. Our next place team is Ross Davis. Ross Davis' team was looking good heading up into the playoffs if we look back 2-3 weeks ago. But now he sits 6-7. I have him falling in the power rankings. This team got banged up a ton this week, hence the 60 points that he dropped. But this team now is scary. It is in Sacco Bowl contention for sure. I would not be surprised if this team is in the danger zone come week 2 or 3 in the playoffs. Our next place team is Matt Davis with a 4-9 record. Matt Davis will definitely be up for Sacco Bowl contention in the next few weeks. He just needs to beat out Ryan Smith, who sits 0-13 in our league, did not win a single game this year. His team is awful, but it will be a battle between Josh, Ross, Matt, and Ryan Smith for the Sacco. Our 5 takeaways from week 13. Our first one is Cubby and Kevin lock up the first round buys. This is huge. A first round buy is probably my favorite addition that we've had to the league over the last 2 years. The first round bye is awarded to the top 2 teams who had the best record, so you get rewarded for having a good record. Prior to this, there was no point in having a good record, really, because once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. But now, me and Cubby will not be playing next week. We can rest all our players, get ready for week 15. Week 14 is now a wash for us. We don't have to worry about it, while 4 teams will battle for the Sacco and 4 teams will battle to play me and Cubby. Our next takeaway is the worst league record has been set in the history of the league. We have ran this league since 2014. The worst record prior to this was held by Tom Lindholm with 2 wins. I didn't want to say anything until I saw how bad Ryan Smith's record was, because we're also doing a new, since we've changed the playoffs with the buys and everything, we also play, I think, 1 more game than we have in the past years. So I wanted to see where his record really fell at the end of the season. But he fell to 0-13. He didn't win a single game. That is the worst record we have ever had. Congratulations, Ryan Smith. You are awful. Point number 3. Week 13 lived up to the hype of not much hype. Week 13 we knew going in, besides Ross, which was a long shot, that was the only playoff implications that may have changed. Ross needed a win. Tyler also needed to lose. He needed 2 things to happen. Neither of them did happen. It was kind of a long ball in the first place. Week 13, besides that, nothing really changed in the playoff scenario or the Sacco Bowl scenario. Maybe a few seedings here and there, but actually when you look at the projected playoff bracket, the same 2 teams in the first round for the Shiva are the same teams. They're just flip-flop seed numbers, which really doesn't matter since we just do a straightforward bracket anyway. So when you look at the playoff bracket, Tyler still plays Jake and Drew's still going to play Ryan. So therefore it didn't change much. Week 13 was just kind of a little refresher, a little group up to get ready for the playoffs. Takeaway number 4 is Tyler worships false idols. Tyler does not worship the Shiva. He hasn't all year. And that is why his team is slipping. And that is why he's in trouble for the playoffs. Tyler worships Todd Gurley. He does not worship Shiva. He breaks one of the 10 commandments in this league. Tyler, your heart lies with Todd Gurley and not Shiva. You should get your priorities straight. Takeaway number 5. Honorary mentions. Honorary mentions for the league this year. I just kind of want to wrap up a few things. Shout out to Drew Michael, starting 5-0, going on a scary run of losing, I think, 4 straight, and still made the playoffs. It's been a roller coaster for Drew Michael, but with great team management, I must say, Drew Michael made the playoffs. I think everybody counted him out at one point. Everybody's like, I think Drew's going to miss the playoffs. Week 13, though, is not the case. Drew Michael's in the playoffs. He has just as much of a shot as anybody else in the playoffs. That is one of my honorary mentions. Another honorary mention is Jake Kerr. And I can throw myself into this category. Me and Jake both started 1-3. A terrible start. I think I went to 1-4. I'm not sure if Jake went to 1-4. Jake might have gone to 1-4 as well. Awful starts. Starting 1-4, you don't make the playoffs. It hasn't happened in league history. Me and Jake both did it. We turned around. I got the number 2 seed. Jake was battling me for the number 2 seed in week 13. Both of us had such great team management that we almost got the number 2 seed in the whole entire league. Granted, the league was a little bit closer this year, but it's still crazy to think about that. Another honorary mention is Josh Kerr. I said this before in the power rankings. I think Josh Kerr has a great team. He's that one team every year that misses the playoffs, and you're like, damn it, that team, if it would have made the playoffs, would have a shot at the Shiva. It happens every year. And Josh Kerr just happened to be the team this year. Honestly, I thought Ross would be that team as well, but with the injuries this week and even some past injuries the following week, Ross's team has really fallen off. I don't think that team is really in the playoff spectrum. I don't think he deserves to be in the playoffs, especially after putting up 60 points this last week. And then an honorary mention to Ryan Smith, who lived last year and just died this year. Just straight up died in fantasy football. All right, so let's start thinking playoffs. It is hopeful for 6 teams in our league, and it is just praying, a lot of praying for 4 teams in our league, hoping that they don't get destroyed. But my first fun fact for the playoffs is that out of the last 2 years, 3 out of 4 teams, 75%, with a first-round bye, made the Shiva Bowl. So out of the last 2 years that we have had a first-round bye, 3 out of the 4 teams have made the Shiva Bowl. Point number 2, the number 1 seed in the playoffs is 0-3 in winning the Shiva. A number 1 seed has never won the Shiva. Point number 3, the team with the worst record is 2-3 won the Sacco. So out of the last 3 years, the team with the worst record has won the Sacco. Point number 4, Matt is the only league member to win the Shiva and the Sacco. Matt Davis is going to be battling to not win the Sacco here again this year. And my final point is we have a 1 in 4 chance that we have a repeat Sacco winner. We have a 3 in 6 chance, a 50% chance that we have a repeat Shiva champion. I have won the Shiva. Drew Michael has won the Shiva. Tyler has won the Shiva. If somebody wins the Shiva twice before some people have not even won it, it will be the ultimate bragging rights in the league. You will be the best by far. Maybe we'll even start a new group chat because we have a Shiva group chat. We have the league group chat. Maybe we'll just have to have a separate group chat for the one person who's won it twice. So, with all these facts about the playoffs, after my power rankings that kind of wrap up where teams have finished in the season, it is time for me to make my playoff predictions. My playoff predictions are mostly based on what teams have done the last 3 weeks and changing their roster up, maybe with trades, maybe with how their points have been going up or down, and also the matchups that they're going to be facing for the weeks to come in the playoffs. My first prediction is Tyler and Cubby don't win a game in the playoffs. I honestly think Tyler and Cubby have the weakest teams that have made the playoffs this year. I don't think either of these teams are scary. I think these are 2 teams that everybody wants to play. The other 4 teams want to play in the playoffs. I think Tyler and Cubby look at every other team and they go, shit, I'm playing them. So Tyler and Cubby, I'm saying don't win a game in the playoffs. It's not personal. It's just the facts. Prediction number 2 is Jake makes it to the Shiva Bowl. If you look at the playoff bracket right now, Jake will play Tyler first round and Cubby second round. And based on my first point, I think that makes Jake the easiest road to the Shiva. Jake has the easiest road to the Shiva. I think he makes it there. I'm not sure if he'll win it or not. Probably not based on the last 4 years this league has been running. But Jake makes another exciting run in the playoffs. That is certain. My next playoff prediction is that Ryan Naughton at some point starts the wrong tight end and loses because of it. Ryan Naughton has started the wrong tight end for like 4 weeks straight now. I'm not saying it'll happen week 1 that he'll start the wrong tight end. Or maybe even week 2. But at some point in the next 3 weeks of the playoffs, Ryan Naughton will start the wrong tight end, and it will be the end to his team. Prediction number 4. Ross and Ryan Smith are the two teams out of the four that will be battling for the Sacco in Week 13. I think Ross, with his injuries and where his team stands now, I don't think this team can compete with Josh, and maybe not even Matt. Matt has some surprising weeks in there. I think out of 3 weeks, Matt has one surprising win in the Sacco Bowl playoffs. Ryan Smith, obviously 0-13. That team is just horrendous. But Ryan Smith also should not be counted out. He does put up about 90 points every week. So if somebody shits the bed the next 3 weeks for all 3 weeks, they will lose to Ryan Smith. And that brings me to my fifth prediction. My fifth and final prediction for the playoffs. Ross Davis is the 2018-2019 Sacco champion. I think Ross Davis wins the Sacco. I am not going to predict who wins the Shiva. That is simply not fair. But obviously you can tell what I think the playoff will shape out to be. But I think Ross Davis wins the Sacco. I think it will be an interesting playoff run. I am excited for the next 3 weeks. Tune in Week 14 to hear my trash talk of whoever I get to play. I can't wait. Good luck to everybody in Week 14, the first round of the playoffs. It should be a good one.